Hello folks and welcome back. I'm Tyler Edlin, and in this video I'm going to be interviewing my former student Xiaofan Zhang. Now she's a working illustrator and does a little bit of concepting, and she works on a graphic novel for herself and basically does all kinds of things. She's learning 3D and animation, so we're going to get into a lot of what makes her tick, how she kind of creates a lot of these images that we see here on screen, and we're going to get to know her a little bit. So yeah, let's get into this.
Today's video is brought to you by our friends at Wingfox and their new course, Environment Illustration for Game Art, a small-town marketplace. This is a great course taught in real time from concept artist Eric Taberman. He's going to walk you through the entire process, from the very beginning, sketching, concepting, ideation, and iteration of your shot in Adobe Photoshop, all the way through development, taking things into Blender, where Eric shows us how to take our sketches and compositions and turn them into actual 3D. This workflow will help set the stage for our painting and breathe life into the final piece. Eric not only explains the how, but the why and the logic and reasoning behind his process, so you too can understand why he makes the decisions that he makes and make good decisions of your own. This is a great course for both beginner and intermediate artists, where you want to dive deeper into digital art and learn about industry standard workflows, or you just want to know more and work on your painting skills. This really is a course that anybody can benefit. So if you want to know more, head on over to wingfox.com and check out this course and all of the other amazing courses they have available today.
All right, guys, I'm back. I got a special guest with me today, Xiaofan Zhang. Thank you for coming on and joining me. We've been planning this for quite a while now.
Thank you. Yes, we have. Last year?
Yeah, last year. I talked to a lot of artists, and I'm like, yeah, we got to get on and talk sometimes. So yeah, you're I'm not gonna say up and coming. You've been creating art for a while, right?
Yeah, a while.
A while now. But yeah, you're a former student of mine. I think you did stuff with Adam as well, right? Adam Duff.
I still on the waiting list. I haven't gotten my turn yet.
All right, so yeah, you're learning a lot of art, and that's why I thought you'd be great for the audience of my channel, because you're really in the thick of it, and you just like a train. You're not stopping. You know, you learn one thing, you're learning the next thing, and you're creating a wide variety of work, you know, with definitely like multiple disciplines. And I just think, like, with you being in the thick of all that, there might be something you could enlighten, you know, part of my audience with, or share something, you know, from your experience today too, that, you know, will resonate well with the audience too, because, you know, again, a very impressive body of work.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That means a lot coming from you.
No problem. And we also talk regularly, even though we kind of did a program together a while ago. You show up every Monday almost for the Brush Sauce Hangouts, which are, you guys, anyone can join in, and Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, and there's links in the Discord, you know, below, and we just, you know, a bunch of artists hanging out and talking the shit. So yeah, it's a good time. So it's always, of course, nice to meet up with you guys and see what you show up with new work like every week, and that's where I originally wanted to get you. I'm like, you work so fast, or you're working so hard, because you're always coming with such new, fresh work, and it's immaculately detailed, and I always respected the heck out of that.
Thank you. I have no social life, as I like to tell people. So yeah, that's why.
But yeah, and that's too. It's like, you know, it's just so impressive. With maybe, you know, we're going to dive into your process today. We'll look at some of what you've been doing, how that process is evolved, you know, over time, you know, with all the courses you've been taking. So I'd say for now, why don't you just tell everyone a little bit about how long your art journey has gone, if there has been much, if any, you know, professional like assistance, or I guess like any proper schooling along the way, and just tell us a little bit about how that journey began.
Yeah. My art journey actually started pretty early. I'd like to tell people that I started drawing when I was 4, so pretty much as soon as I could hold a pencil, and I kind of just never really stopped. I started extracurricular art courses when I was 8 years old. So
Oh wow.
very young. And I started out doing like really basic cartoon characters and like drawing my favorite anime and all that stuff. And then moving into now, I'm taking courses online at CGMA, which is also where you teach,
Hmm.
just as a substitute for quote, quote, art school because college is expensive and I don't have the time. Um,
Yes.
so that's sort of the route I'm on right now. I had just finished all of the 2D courses that I had wanted to take. I think probably back in January-ish,
Hmm.
and I'm now fully started in my 3D track. So getting into like game dev and like 3D modeling and all that stuff, which is completely new, but a lot of fun. So that's sort of where I'm at right now.
So yeah, you started 2D. You're now doing lots of 3D. What are some of your favorite courses that you've taken at CGMA so far?
I think my two favorite courses so far are the last two that I took, and that was the first one was 2D for 3D artists,
Hmm.
and that one was amazing because it changed my entire workflow and it made my life so much easier.
That's what I've been
Uh,
telling people. Like even a little bit of 3D, right, can go a long way.
yeah, yeah, and because like you can see, a lot of my work is cinematic, so I need perspective. I need like it's a lot more than just flat compositions.
Yes.
Maybe not this one, but
I,
a lot of my other ones. So initially, I wanted to just challenge myself. Like these ones that you're looking at now have no 3D in them.
yeah.
Um, I drew all of these with a perspective grid because I wanted to. I told myself like before I start, using stuff to help my process along, I need to know how it works. So I started out with just flat perspective grids, and then like when I moved into 3D, so much more became possible because there could be like weird things that are not in the perspective grid. I could like change the angle of things, and I don't have to do a million calculations. So it completely changed my workflow.
I think I know exactly what you mean because I fall in this trap too, as I'm sure many people are. Is if we draw a scene with a perspective grid, we tend to only draw things in that scene perpendicular and like everything's at like 90 degrees or aligned to that grid. When we of course we exist in a 3D world, right? Things could be not oriented all perfectly the same, so it tends to kind of stiff up the drawing in the scene quite a bit by going the conventional way of drawing a grid, because realistically every object in a scene would have its own kind of vanishing points, which I mean you could do a little bit of guessing, but that's what you were talking about, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That was a big game changer. And then the other one is actually this really, really technical course just on folds on clothing. Like that's all it taught was how to
The
draw folds.
clothing and drapery course.
Yeah. And that was an amazing course. It was absolutely brutal. The amount of homework was crazy, but it was very, very good, and I really enjoyed it.
You draw a lot of clothed figures, like, and not just like streetwear. You do like gowns. There's robes. There's historical context to a lot of that, and I see a lot of students. You've probably seen a lot of students, right, too, in that class. Like, uh, normally a lot of people will just make up the folds. I have students now that make up the folds, and I'm like, and I have to call them on it every time. It's like a professional will not make up that fold to that degree. You have to do something to reference that or to understand the type, right? Because there's like six or seven maybe like types of very specific folds that happen in
Yes.
very specific. Like there's knowledge to be applied, right, to all these pieces that people just guess on and hope to be a professional by doing all this guesswork.
Right. Yeah, and what I've learned sort of the hard way as well, because there was a point in time where I, just sort of winged it with the folds, and that didn't work out. Now I reference everything. I'm not like dead tied to the reference because I know the fundamentals. I know why the folds are there, so I can still stylize and move things to fit the composition.
Mm-hmm.
But having a reference there really, really helps like push home the realism. And it does make a huge difference.
Definitely. And another thing that I think stands out, I remember this is one of the pieces we had worked on together. Well, one of the things that really helps your work stand out too is like you have a really great attention to not necessarily details, I'd say, but like the materials of different things. Like, the way you got that shine across this embroidered aspect of like, you know, the robe on these figures and stuff. A lot of people just, again, kind of try to take a shortcut through something like that and either just draw it as literally like the same material, right? Is the fabric, the skin, and the embroidery. But like you have a nice attention to like, you know, making that feel separate and making that feel really, you know, full of life, basically, with the accuracy.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, if you look at some of my more recent stuff, I go into actual exploration of different materials. So the latest one, that first one there, she's wearing all black.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole point of it was to draw the black surfaces differently so that you can see the different materials. That was the point of this piece, and like hopefully I achieved that, but that was what I was going for.
Yeah, that's awesome. So when you're tackling new, and this is a lot of this is personal work, right? This is as recent as 2 days ago. You
Yeah.
set up your own micro personal challenges to solve per the piece, right?
Yes, a lot of my pieces are like that. Um, that one's a professional piece. That
Mhm.
one was not. That was not a challenge. This one was for a game. Across the Ages. It's a trading card game.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're doing a lot of this, the higher end kind of illustration stuff too. Your work just fits really, really well with it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I remember that we were working on this one too back, like, right, and you nailed the material of that chair. You know, it's kind of got like that satin look, that satin kind of
Mhm.
fit, that gloss to it, and then we got in there with the gold, you did all that, and it was just absolutely stunning. You know, to see that really come together like that.
Thank
And you
you.
can see
Yeah.
all the brushwork. So it's you know there there was shortcuts maybe, but there wasn't shortcuts. You still put your hand to the craft and like labored over getting that in there and done. Even though right we were referencing 3D chairs and other things for perspective and lighting, but yeah, I mean that this is all you. So that's again super commendable, and I've always really respected that.
Thank you. Yeah. I think like this was drilled into me back in the day when I was doing atelier in high school.
Hmm.
My teacher always said like you need to like learn how to do something the hard way before you start looking for shortcuts, is what he said.
Yeah, I think that's a bigger lesson here all along. Is like with the availability of softwares, right? Like Blender's free, the DAZ stuff
Mhm.
is free, AI AI too now it's not 100% free. You know they got submodels. We were trying that out last night in the
Mhm.
Hangout, but again that's just another tool. There's a lot of things, a lot of shortcuts that I think make it very easy, maybe even very gratifying for less experienced artists to kind of get in there, and then they kind of end up becoming it becomes more of like a crutch, and then they can't solve their way through the more important problems, I guess, the more conventional or traditional way, and it ends up right lots of problems. It ends up snowballing from there, taking
Yeah.
too many shortcuts too soon.
Yeah, and like a lot of times when sometimes when I see people's work and they use a whole bunch of shortcuts, you can kind of tell. Like you can tell where they try to hand paint something and it just doesn't look right. So, yeah, I'm always of the school of trying to do something the hard way first, because I definitely did it the hard way at the beginning.
Yes. And you've got everything in here. You got some awesome, very classically done, fan art like from Castlevania here, and you've got lots of, kind of like Eastern sort of theme art. What is the main driving force for you in terms of like inspiration and stuff? Like what really gets you up in the morning, wanting to kind of create, the subjects and the genres that you do? Is it anything in particular, or can you trace that back?
I just like telling stories. And for me, the two main things that I usually draw are centered around the two, I guess, quote, quote, webtoons or comics that I'm working on. So I've written two entirely different worlds. One is a historical Chinese sort of fantasy plot or setting, and then the other one is a cyberpunk kind of dystopian setting. Um, so I just kind of flip-flop between the two and then like come up with new ideas. And then like if there's different materials or different compositions or different, I guess, techniques that I want to use, I'll try and incorporate it into that. And actually my latest piece is a Ghibli inspired piece.
Do you want to share your screen and show us a little bit of your web comics and stuff that you're working on? All right, so this is a scene from one of your webcomics.
This is a scene that's inspired by my webcomics, not actually in my webcomic.
Okay, tell us
Um,
about that. That's what we're here for.
okay, all right. So let me start with the webcomic. Um, this is my webcomic. It's on webtoon.com. Um,
I'll have links below for all this in case anyone's interested.
thank you, thank you. It's a horror fantasy series. It's set in ancient China. Well, a fictitious time in ancient China. So, um, and I started it back in, I want to say 2028 is when I started actually writing it. Sorry, it's 2028, 2018. What am I saying? And then I actually launched it in 2019. So you'll see if you do read it, you'll see the art improve a lot between 2019 and
That's
now.
very common for this type of work too, right? Like, and I've seen people go back and redo stuff, but I mean that's a tall order, when it comes to this. So I think we can respect that and go on that journey with your art.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I'm not going to do that because it's just going to take too long.
Yeah.
I don't really have time. Plus, I'm doing this for fun. It's not like I'm getting
Yes.
paid for this, so
Yeah, okay, and I think that's a good thing too. You do this purely out of passion and interest. This isn't like a business model that you made a 5-year plan with or anything. Like you just do this because you love this, right?
yeah, like not at all. Like this doesn't make me any money except for maybe Patreon, but I have like 19 patrons.
Hmm.
So if you're interested in Patreon, I'm there too.
Yeah, we'll get a link for that, of course.
Okay. Um, you can see the style's a little bit different because I needed to simplify my painting style um, to suit like a comic because I can't paint every single panel the way I normally do. And it's about like two people, so this guy and this girl, and they're like investigating supernatural cases. And the whole point of the story is to drive home like the nature of humanity, quote quote. That sounds very airy, but like I wanted to tell stories about people and like overarching themes in the story are very much still problems and like social problems that are present today. So like I wanted the story to be fantastical, but at the same time very relatable. Um, but yeah, like I mean, it's yeah, and it also draws a lot of historical references from ancient China, like actual like ancient poetry, a lot of the like historical references and paintings. Like I'm a huge nerd, so I'm really into that stuff. But like I incorporated all that into this comic.
What is your process on a typical panel like this go through? Do you do like the conventional rough kind of thumbnail, clean it up, add in the color? How does that look?
So, the way that I plan out my panels, I actually I tend to model like I think about the background, like what I want the setting to be. And in this case, it's an archive, like a book room. And like in my head, I'll have an idea what it sort of looks like. And then this was before I learned Blender. So before I learned Blender, I was using SketchUp. Um, and so my backgrounds I'll model in SketchUp. And then I'll kind of fly around as like a disembodied head or
Mm-hmm.
camera and take shots of like sort of where I want the story beats to be.
Yep.
And then I'll stick them into the order that I want them to be in the webcomic, and I'll like chicken scratch my characters into the scene.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then I'll detail it and color it and so forth. Go from there. Yeah.
And so that's more or less the same as it is today, but you're kind of having Blender do a lot more of that as that's becoming more and more the newer standard.
Right. So I haven't transitioned away from SketchUp yet in my comic because I have so many pre-existing backgrounds
Oh,
that
okay. So yeah, you're reusing a lot of that content for efficiency.
yeah. So until like probably I finish this part of the story and I need like new models, I'll transition over to Blender.
Mm-hmm.
But as of now, I'm still using a lot of SketchUp.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
how long do you think an average panel for you now takes to produce?
It kind of depends on how complicated it is. Like panels like this takes me, like an hour, 2 hours maybe.
Okay.
Um, just because like it takes a while to get the framing right and then I have to get the proportions right and whatnot. And then like more complicated stuff. I don't know if I have one in this chapter, but there's like multiple people in a panel or like I have to draw crowds or whatnot. Is it loading? That takes me a lot longer. And those, like the bigger ones, especially where I have to paint the background and stuff, sometimes it takes me the same time as like a full painting, like 10 hours sometimes. Just not a good business model to go with if you're doing comics. But
that might be an important reality for you, because we've had people to just drop in to the hangout sometime, like, I want to do this, for a living. It's like, have you planned that out? Do you know what the options are to make this profitable, or do you know how fast you'd have to go to, right? There's a lot of components, I should say, and factors that would have to go into something like that.
yeah, I completely agree. Yeah.
Not to piss on anybody's dreams, but
It's very true. Like I started this with the intention of practicing poses and anatomy. That was my intention. It wasn't to make money. So don't copy my style and don't copy my workflow.
but you get good results nonetheless, and it's consistent. I think it's, at least within this page, you have a lot of good attributes about this, even though if that consistency, right, is improving over time. You're doing these chapter releases, so how often do you release a whole chapter, or do you upload pages every week?
No, like I upload a chapter at a time, and like if I didn't have homework and I didn't have commissions, I could knock it out in about a month if I just kept on working on it. But like I have school, so I have homework, and then I have commissions, which have to take priority since I don't get paid for this comic. Like it takes me much, much longer. So like now I'm probably at like month 6 and I still haven't released yet. But that's just reality.
Yeah. But you're doing, let's hold the brakes there for, you're doing your classes. You're doing one class at a time typically, or do you take more than one?
I take 2 at a time.
2 at a time, yeah, because I know you just did like an Unreal, right? You did an Unreal kind of modeling course, was it? To do the animation stuff, and you do the folds. So you're taking classes, you're doing this comic, you're doing the freelance commission work too. Yeah. What else goes in? You working like any kind of 9 to 5 job, or like, how many things are you packing into your schedule? All right, but you do have one though.
I guess I do. Yeah.
Well, I think that's an important thing for people to realize too. It's just like you're juggling, right, all of these different things and making it happen.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
That's super important.
Okay. All right.
We all have hustles, right? And and that's one of the reasons why I wanted you on, is because I don't want to say you're like out hustling a lot of people. You don't stop. You're just like, going one thing to the next, and it's very inspirational.
Thank you.
Because right, one of the biggest things that a lot of people do, I see it every term, running multiple classes on different platforms, is people love to make excuses, right, for themselves. We are the best at making excuses to yourself, and you're of that kind of personality type, from what I see, that no excuses. You show up consistently, like every day, right, and you get things done. Would you agree that lends a lot to like your productivity and how, in a forward moving motion your career is going? Because like I said, it's really beginning to take off.
Thank you. Yeah, I've always been the type of person who just can't really slow down. I don't really like having nothing to do, so I try to find something for myself to do when I have nothing to do.
Yeah. So you're filling your life with things that matter the most. So.
Yes. I mean, interpersonal relationships are also important. Don't neglect those. I need to work on those.
All right. We all have things to work on.
Okay. Yeah.
And now you're doing. Last I heard, you're now, your art is going to a place where you're doing rigging and like game ready assets. Do you want to show a little bit and go into details on how that's all going? Some of the newest of your skill sets that you're picking up.
Sure.
You want to show that reel? You could do it without the music.
I have one that has non-copyright music. It's a Maya file. I gotta pull it up. But yeah, I'm looking forward to next semester though, because next term it's ZBrush, and I really want to work on ZBrush. So this is my latest model. Well, I modeled him.
Yeah, you made a
So
robot, and he's all
my little
rigged up,
robot guy.
right?
Yeah, and then I used some procedural models, and then I used procedural animations, and then I also used some mocap on this guy. So it's really simple, but it took I can't remember how long it took, but like a couple of hours to put this thing together. He's just swimming with fish.
So now you can like make animated intros and stuff to your webcomics and stuff, and up the production values.
I mean, yeah, but I gotta learn how to like model things properly, because like right now I'm limited to this, and I want to like actually model my characters. Like I actually
But
really
you'll
do.
get sculpt them out, right, in the ZBrush
Exactly, yeah.
when you learn
So
that. Like,
we'll get there.
so yeah, you I would be like technically impaired on trying to learn something this complex, but you can just toss yourself in the deep end and take these classes and sort it out, and I think that's just awesome.
Man, I love it. I love trying to figure this stuff out. It's just, I don't know. I just it like gives me drive. I actually wake up in the morning and be like, I really want to work on this thing. It's weird.
That is awesome. The,
Yeah.
the robot animation gets done before the client work, right?
Some days, yes,
What
some
what's
days.
your what's your experience on that note? I'll go over to my screen. How's your experience been working with some clients so far? Has it been good? Mostly positive, and anything to that you regret?
I I wouldn't say I regret anything. I think working with clients has been pretty positive overall. I haven't met any like super demanding, unreasonable people yet. I imagine I'll probably meet some at some point, because that's just the reality of things. But so far it's been really good. Like I've met some really good people, made some really good contacts, and yeah, I think the most important thing though is if you do a good job, they will come back.
Yeah, they always do.
So that's all good.
Yeah, you have you, like you have a very consistent look to your work, even though some things like this kind of feel right like a little more towards fine art. But like it always kind of looks like your stuff, which is great. Like I mean, look at the amount of detail in here. There, like this literally feels like you didn't take a single shortcut in there, and that you really consistently, went in there and made sure everything was exactly the way it needed to be. Like you curated every part of that.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I did. And this was one of the biggest pieces that I did without any 3D. There's no 3D in
Yeah,
this.
this was 7 months ago, and that's before you kind of took that big leap into that
Yeah,
area.
yeah. I don't know. I'm not really sure exactly how to describe my style. Like people keep asking me like, "Sha, how do you explain like what is your style?" And I'm like, I don't know.
It's
Uh,
awesome. It's all you. It's right. It's a combination of all your influences and your what you've learned. I think that's a huge thing to take away. 'Cause right, like you obviously came from like these like anime and kind of spot inspired kind of designs and shapes and aesthetics, but because you know so much about art, right, and you've learned and accumulated
mm,
so much other influences, it all kind of matches up together in your particular way.
yeah. I think that's a very accurate way of putting it. Thank you.
Well, I see it all the time, when I'm sure you see it too. It maybe just not from an instructor standpoint when someone's only kind of looking or so self-absorbed with one particular style or aesthetic. And again, there's a lot of it where people are just too obsessed with either Japanese or anime kind of style pictures, and they want to get jobs out there. But it's like, okay, that's your starting point, but like open the windows, open the door, let other bits of artistic influence and history and culture come into there to supplement that, because it will take things, and really let them fly for you if you're open-minded enough to let it grow.
Yeah, I completely agree. And like I think like even quoting Adam and how he got into tattoos and how that's influenced his art. Like it's like it doesn't even have to be related to what you're doing. It can still influence it, which is I think is pretty cool.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, these are
Yeah.
great. And again, one of the most prominent parts about all your pictures is you're literally bringing storytelling to a lot of them. Which again, I see a lot of illustrators just trying to make the standard kind of pictures. Here's a dragon, here's a sky, or here's a knight, or here's just like a robot in a street alley. But your pictures tend to go beyond just like arranging a popular themed asset and putting it into a picture. Like you get some narrative going on, and I think again that's another huge part that what makes your work, it elevates it up a tier or four, than the standard affair.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's I really like narrative. I feel like an image needs to draw you in and kind of like tell a story, because otherwise people are just going to look at it for like 2 seconds and be like, oh yeah, pretty picture, slide, you know. So I like to try and put some sort of story in it. Now I can't always do it with like the professional stuff, but like my personal stuff, I do try to tell something, say
Yeah,
something.
it says that you have something to say, and I think that's what's really awesome. So do you, coming in from that angle, do you have like a lot of stories that you kind of go around in your head at once? Do you keep a notebook or a journal where you kind of jot ideas down kind of quickly and just kind of tap into that? How's that work for you?
Yeah, I have a physical sketchbook, and I sketch stuff in it, and they're not good sketches at all. They look like chicken
Yeah,
scratch,
people have
but
seen my sketches on this channel. You know how it is.
I feel like mine might be worse, but like
I'll bring
it,
mine up on screen now. Like this is what I was working with today. My sketches are rough.
all right, yeah, pretty similar to that, except mine are a lot of minor characters, so it's like the anatomy's not right, like nothing's right, and I just quickly like doodle it in just so that I remember it, but yeah, that's how I keep track of it. And then like over time, I'll pick the ideas that I like best and I'll turn them into paintings. But too many ideas, way too many.
Yes, I think that's how a lot of creators can tend to go, like that are really just creating nonstop. It's like it's a weird. There's like I think there's a proper name or principle for this theory that right the more you do something right it literally kind of snowballs and the more of it starts to come with you. Whereas like if you're the type of person that sits around and makes excuses and I'm not creating or doing you like that creativity never comes, so you're not giving it an opportunity to. But if you're actually in the moment creating all the time, you can't stop the influx of ideas that just start coming to you, and one thing just leads to the next.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it's like you got to get out of your own headspace if perpetual art blocks seems to be your issue. Like, it's not your issue, but for if you're a student, just like stop making excuses and do something else. You gotta work around it.
Yeah. I mean, I get art blocks sometimes too, especially when I'm feeling uninspired. And like the easiest way to do that is just to find something you like and then just do a study. And then immediately you'll have more ideas.
Now these are starting where about 4 months ago, where you started integrating 3D
Yeah.
in your workflow. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, or again show us maybe like one of your files, like this one? I think you have a pretty good model for. You want to run us through like what the base 3D kind of looked like and how it kind of progressed into your kind of signature look.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Let me share my screen here. Thank you, thank you. Okay, so that's the Photoshop file. Okay, so this is the Blender file. And like I don't know how much you want me to explain
Yeah,
the
you could just
Blender.
do a little flyby. And now, did you use any pre-made assets with this, or did you go in and kind of learn a lot of these particle systems and things of your own?
Yeah, so I'd say probably 90% of this is my own stuff. So I modeled the entire building, including all of these like roof eaves and like
Awesome.
all of these stuff.
So much
Like,
respect right there. Look at that.
thank you, thank you.
Right? No
Um,
shortcuts. There you go.
yeah, no shortcuts. And I didn't learn how to do plants yet, so I did download these plants. Like these plant files are pre-made. Um, but I did do the particle systems myself, and like I don't know, everything else is basically modeled by me. And then place the cameras, and then you mess with the lighting. And I'm not going to render it now because that might crash everything. So
Yeah. Okay. So
uh,
you did do cycles.
yeah, I did cycles rendering. Um, And like, you know, you render this out, and then I painted in the characters by hand. So if I change the angle here, this is another angle, and then this is the angle that I actually painted with the characters in it. For reference and sort of for just proportions, I'll do a pose in DAZ, which is like, I guess, this character 3D posing software.
Yeah, and do you export those right into the Blender?
Yeah, I export the OBJ files in and just stick them in their places. But again, my advice is know anatomy before you use those things, because
they have some particular specialties to them.
Yeah, because like there's like the muscle definition isn't the way you want it to. There's some weird deformation. So like if you're gonna paint over them, it's important to know your anatomy. Just my 2 cents. And wait, that's my wallpaper.
Stunning wallpaper.
Thank you.
Awesome. Yes, okay. Here you go. You'll take us through this.
Yeah, so this is my Photoshop file afterwards. And essentially, I'll export it twice. So I'll export it once with the DAZ placeholders, and then I'll export it again without the DAZ placeholders. And then I'll go in and just paint on top of the DAZ models and basically repaint everything. Because if you look at the characters, they look nothing like the DAZ characters.
Yeah, they don't.
Like, I actually do repaint everything. And then, like, I'm too lazy to pose the hands properly, so I actually just pose them with, like, a flat hand.
Yep.
And then
like the...
I'll just paint in my hands. Exactly, yeah. But yeah, just lots of layers in Photoshop. Paint around the existing architecture, like, and then maybe fix up some values here and there, differentiate stuff, and then run some lighting at the end and call it a day.
Call it a day. Yeah, but that's what's great about using 3D on something like this, right? We saw how you can get multiple shots in sequence pretty quickly from that, which is I'd say one of the biggest strengths of 3D.
Oh, for sure. And like if you wanted to change like this view by like 2 millimeters, you can do that here, right? If you were to draw it in 2D, you'd have to redraw the whole thing.
And that's a lot of drawing, with all those files. So
exactly. So it's changed my entire workflow. It's made my life so much easier.
Yeah, how much time do you think you're spending for the drawing portion of it? Is it like start to finish? I didn't want to ask about the 3D because I know you can use 3D for a lot of these scenes, but like just on the 2D side of it, I assume that sped it up and stuff. So like just in case people are wondering, how long do you think you just spend per image after the 3D?
I think I still do spend quite a decent amount of time because I tend to paint over a lot of my 3D stuff. So let's say, for example, we'll say this image.
Yep, this
right?
is a very recent one, right?
Yeah. I actually painted over a lot of this because when you export stuff, there's like some weird grain that happens in cycles. So in order for it to look more consistent and to like also differentiate the lighting, because 3D renders I find look a little bit muddy. So if you want your shapes to be clearer, you actually do need to paint over a lot of things. I'd say it still takes quite a while. I don't remember how long this one took.
But this is a very complex piece in itself. Like, again, handled extremely well.
Thank you. I'd say this was upwards of 20-something hours,
Yeah.
maybe 30. Yeah. It's up there.
Well earned though. Like, this is just immaculately executed. So.
Thank you.
Very, very good. I love that warm light underneath the character. It's like we don't even need to show where that's coming from, but it just makes the character pop very nicely.
Thank you.
And right, and it goes well with like the koi theme and everything. So very good.
Yeah, and I can't remember exactly what I wanted to do with this one. I think I wanted to paint water, and that's why I painted this piece.
Water challenge.
Yeah, sort of that sort of thing, yeah. And, oh yeah, there's also a Ghibli piece that I did, because I want to challenge myself to do Ghibli.
Yeah?
But...
How did that work? Is that a new piece in progress?
No, it's done. I haven't posted it yet, but here we go.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, awesome. Here, everyone gets a sneak peek at this. This is awesome. This looks really cool.
It might be up by the time you post the video.
Probably, realistically. Yeah, this is awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. So this one has no 3D. This is just 2D. And I was like trying to emulate the whole like Ghibli background watercolor sort of feel.
Yeah, that looks fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Again, really good composition and lighting. What has been the hardest thing, I think, for you to kind of put together in your own whole process of making a picture? What particular area of subject or even fundamental has been the most difficult for you?
You know what? It's color.
Color and light, right?
It's not the light, because I'm okay with values. It's just color. Because when I was doing the Ghibli studies, right, and you zoom into all of these amazing like watercolors backgrounds, and you realize just how much color they put into everything. Like just the variation on the trees, and like here they put purples and blues and you know, that's not something that you intuitively see if you're not really like trying to interpret the color yourself. It's all green, like that's what it looks like. But because you add all these like small splashes of colors that aren't intuitively there, you add a lot of life to the image. So it's actually color. That's what I'm working on right now.
That's awesome. I think that's very valid. That is probably one of the most popular subjects I teach on, because there's a big market for it, because it is fundamentally very tough.
Exactly. Yeah.
To do it well. Like
Exactly.
you can do it, but to do color really well is an art in itself.
I totally agree.
I think you
do it really well. Your colors just pop. I love them. They're amazing.
I color. That's what I do. I get 3D assistants. I get people doing even compositions for me, but I like save the coloring for me. You know, I love it. I love to just give me a picture to color in. I'll do it all day.
Damn, that's amazing. I need to work on that, and I am. I'm trying to get better at it. So
yeah, well, very good. Thank you for coming on and sharing your journey and your process with us today. I hope that helps somebody out there. I'm sure it will. But yeah, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you for having me on. It's been an honor to be on your channel and speak to you about this.
And if anyone ever wants to come by and swing by and say hi, you and I are pretty commonly at the Monday night hangouts. We're always looking for new blood.
Yeah, pretty much every week.
A couple spots, but yeah, we'll have links for all of your things below so people can find you. They can support you. We'll send some traffic your way if anyone's finding their way to this video. All right, so thank you very much.
Thank you.